thought that the biggest hurdle was actually starting the channel, because like for someone else, starting a channel, it doesn't take much. Like, you just start a channel and then you just engage people, you know what I mean? But for me, like, God knows what it took for me to actually like put myself out there, in such a vulnerable and like personal way. I'm really exposed. Like, I feel naked. I feel like my privacy has been invaded, you know, because I really, really like enjoyed remaining hidden, like I didn't expect to like experience all sorts of feelings and conflicts posting the first video, like it's taken me by surprise, because I thought like I had like done most of the work already. Like, I've gotten over the biggest hurdle, which was actually just starting the channel, posting the first video. But now that I've done it, like I've done the obedience part of it, I'm realizing that like obedience, it's not just like a once-off thing that I do where I'm just like, okay, God, I did the thing you asked me to do. Like, I actually have to keep going back to Him, coming back like daily to a place of like surrender and saying, okay, God, like, what are we doing? What are we saying today? And even when He says nothing, like, even when I can't hear Him, like trusting that, like, okay, He has nothing for me right now, and so we'll try again tomorrow, or we'll try again later, but not feeling like the pressure to like almost like just get content out, because there's also that thing of like, once you actually start putting out content, you have to be consistent. So there's like all sorts of like tensions I'm feeling, and still having to be in a place where I have to trust Him, that if He started a good work, He's faithful to complete it. And the beauty of it though is I don't have to do this in my own strength. That's the freeing part about this, is that this is not my like project. This is really not my project. Like, this is not my baby. I know I started the channel, but this was not my idea. And so I'm not responsible for making this channel a success. I'm not responsible for keeping you guys entertained. I'm not responsible to rise up to any expectations. That's the thing that's so hard for me. And I'll tell you why. Like, so growing up, okay, I mentioned in my first video that one of my Achilles heels is that I have perfectionistic tendencies. And so when I was younger, I struggled with a lot of anxiety, because that was also coming from, that place of like wanting everything to be perfect, wanting to be in control. Man, like setting like very unrealistic expectations and standards on myself. And that came from having a performance complex. Basically, the gist of that is and it all links back to childhood, right? Like, growing up, when you are a child that ends up growing up with a performance complex, it's a thing where you have the type of dynamic or relationship with your parents where like affection or love is performance based. And it's not necessarily a thing where the parent has done anything to make the child feel like, you have to perform for my love. It's just how the child interprets situations. So if as a child, what you remembered was that I get the most affection if I've done good at school, like I got a good grade, or like I started a new sport and I'm doing really well in it, and I came home with a medal. If you got a level of praise out of your caregivers for that, that would be the thing that can create a performance complex, right? Like, so it's not to say you were raised by these bad people that like put you in a position where you had to be a performer for them, for their enjoyment and their amusement. They could have genuinely loved you and given you their best, but somehow, because of the type of temperament and personality that you have as a child, then because it's hard for children to process emotions clearly and even accurately at times, you can develop a complex, off of behavior that was actually like meant to be harmless, that was meant to do good. Also, like, this is something that took me a long time to even understand, like, because initially when you start doing the work, you want to blame someone, like you want to have something to point at or someone to point at for those wounds. Like, you want to say, you did this to me, you're the reason I'm this way, right? And so I want us to heal from a healthy place where we actually take responsibility for our wounds, for our patterns, for whatever complexes we may have. because I feel like I went through certain things so that like other people don't have to also. Like, I'd rather save you the trouble of also having to go through a period where you like have resentment towards your own parents, just to come on the other side and realize like, oh, actually there were multiple factors at play and nobody's wrong and everybody is just trying and was just trying. You know what I mean? So I went through that, where it was hard to grapple with the fact that like I had so much stuff, like I had so much stuff to unpack, and then questioning like, did these people mean to do this to, like, did they want to hurt me? Do they love me? Did they love me? I want to save you guys the part where you wonder whether anybody hurt you intentionally, or you wonder whether anybody could have done better, or you wonder whether like you could have had a better mother or better father, or if they were around, if anything could have been different. Like, don't even go down that hole. Like, I swear you're gonna come back to the same place where you actually have to realize that they were human and you're human, and you're also gonna mess up. Like, one day when you're in their shoes and you have your own kid and you're just weighing it and you realize you actually don't know what you're doing and you're just trying your best, and then you're sitting with a teenager on your hands and your teenager's telling you you are problematic, then you're gonna realize like it's not easy. It's not easy for anybody, so I don't mean to be an apologist or anything. As much as I don't want to invalidate you in your experiences, I also don't want to enable hatefulness and resentfulness towards the people that may have contributed to our hurt. Like, there is a place where we can acknowledge that people or parents hurt us. In this particular context, we're speaking about parents, right? Because we're talking about childhood stuff, or an aunt, whatever like represented a caregiver to you, right? Or a grandmother. But there's a place where we can acknowledge that a caregiver or guardian hurt us without turning that person into a villain, without making them the bad guy of our story, because our story has so many different layers to it, and we are also part of the layers. So what I mean by that is, you are also part of the reason why you respond to things the way that you do. The type of personality that you have, the type of temperament that you have. And temperament speaks to your natural dispositions. So like, are you typically more anxious, or are you more like relaxed, like laid back? Are you typically more like aggressive, or are you more like the type that will people please? Are you typically more outspoken or more quiet? That's what I mean by temperament. So even a child's temperament determines a lot of how they turn out in terms of whatever trauma or issues or stuff they might have later, right? It's not only just a thing of how you were raised and whatever approaches were used by the people in question, right? So it's how your temperament, your personality, and them and their approach and their personality and their temperaments all interacted together to produce whatever was the outcome, right? So I feel like that might be actually freeing for someone, because maybe you are struggling with feelings of resentment but love. So it's like, you love this person but you also resent them at the same time, because it's like, I know that you love me and I love you, but you also hurt me, and I don't know what to do with that. Like, I don't know what to do with the fact that I really, really respect you and I hold you in high regard, but also you messed up big time, and half the time you didn't know what you were talking about. So now I don't know if I should take you seriously, And so, yeah, I hope that's freeing for someone, that you don't have to get into a place where you almost wanna just be someone that rebels from authority, period, because you feel like adults can't be trusted. I went through that, where I was just like, you know what, adults in general actually just don't know anything, guys. We're actually on our own, so let's just ignore them, all of them. If I can prevent somebody else from having to go through that and coming to these realizations later, I would rather, So why this is so hard for me, it's like, I think God keeps bringing me back to a place where he's just like, this isn't going to work unless you're vulnerable. This isn't going to work unless you're completely authentic and true to your testimony. And like, all the things that you've been through, like, those are the things I want to use. Because every single episode, I'm having to like peel back layers about myself. Like, in processing with you and unpacking with you, it's not just that thing where I'm going to be like a therapist, like I do with my patients, where I'm telling them what they shouldn't be doing. Like, this is that one where it's reciprocal, like it's interactive. So you share and I share. But mostly I'm the one sharing, and hoping that you'll take something away from my story. I think that's the part that's hardest for me, like coming to terms with this, like, yo, like he really has me out here like naked, bro. And he means it. Like he's not changing his mind. Every time I try to talk about something, like I deviate and I start recording, like the thing just goes weird. Like the video just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't come together, and it's like he's just like, this only works if you are going to be exactly who you are, like exactly who I've made you to be, in all your flaws, in all your mistakes, in all, your imperfection. Like that's the thing people need, and it's hard, because it goes against everything that we believe. Like we believe that, like, on socials we need to come on here and be our most perfect selves. We present this level of authenticity that's really wrapped up in perfection, if we're keeping it real, so this is that one where he's just like, nah, like it's actually only gonna take being real, like for real, not like a level of real that's comfortable for you, or level of real that you feel like people will identify with. Like he doesn't even want me to think about what you guys might want. He's just like, trust me, like I'm telling you what will work. I'm telling you what people need. And it's funny because in the process, he's working on me too. Like I'm saying, I have a performance complex where, well, I had. Let me speak in past tense also, because you don't ever claim anything you have healed through. If you've ever been diagnosed with depression or bipolar, whatever, don't say like, oh, my depression or my bipolar in conversation. Talk about the bipolar, the depression. Don't, like, I don't want to get into that right now, but yeah, like, don't take stuff on, basically. Like, even the things that you're struggling with, don't take that on. Like, if you have an addiction or whatever, don't say like, oh, my addiction. It's the addiction. It's an addiction. You're struggling with something. It's not part of your identity. It's not yours. It doesn't belong to you. So, but okay, I digress. What I'm trying to say is, I grew up struggling with a performance complex, right? Basically, which means I grew up as the type of child who felt like the more sports I did, the better grades I got, the better I looked, making sure like I never stepped out of the house without like everything being in place, that's what I'm referring to by performance complex. It's like everything is based in work. It's works based. And you can imagine how exhausting that is, because like everything was on my shoulders. When you have that type of struggle, it's hard for you to even receive the grace and goodness of God, because you feel like everything is up to you. It's all in your hands. You're in charge. You're in control. If you don't manipulate it well enough, it's not going to do the things. So I lived from that place. Like, I literally like ran myself into the ground, like excelling in sports, making sure my grades stayed high, making sure like my hair was always perfect. Like, can you imagine? Because I didn't want to get teased. I didn't want to get picked on about it. Like, nobody was going to catch me slipping. That was like the type of time I was on. Like, that was the energy I had. It was like a thing of, I'm going to make sure that nobody has anything that they can come for me about. And basically what you're doing is living from a place of fear. You're living from a place of insecurity. But so anyways, I'm just out here like telling all my stuff, bruh. Like, and that's another thing. Like, I was telling God, I was like, Lord, first of all, I'm a private person. Like, I really mind my business. Like, I pride myself on minding my business. Second, now you're gonna have me out here spilling all the beans. And what happens when somebody from my past, or somebody that doesn't know this version of me, that knew a previous version of me, doesn't recall the story the way that I'm saying it now? Like, what if my testimony is invalid to somebody else because they like, that's not how I remember it? Or, oh, she's a liar. Or, oh, she's fake. Like, she's putting on for YouTube, like, or even people I hurt, like people I might have offended or hurt in the past. Like, what if they just like, oh, you're just not going to take accountability for the harm that you caused while you were in these seasons? Like, I was just like, God, like, why have you got me out here, like, in a position where people can actually have ammunition to come for me? And isn't that interesting? Because now he's got me in a place where he's challenging that very same thing I was trying to run from when I was small. Like, I was on some, I'm going to make sure nobody can ever like attack me, come for me, say they did nothing for me. Like, like I'm not going to give anybody any ammo to ever like do me dirty type of thing. And so now he's got me in a place where the thing I feared the most, and that place I was operating from, trying to run from that fear, it all came back to this moment where he's like, okay, now give them all the ammo, like spill all the beans. And I want to put you in a position where the thing you've been most afraid of your whole life, that if you actually did it, like gave all the ammo, like let's see what people could do with it type of thing. Like let's see what you think that your enemy could do with it. Yo, guys, hi. It's costly, let me tell you. It's wild because you think God loves you and God wants to protect you and God would never hurt you, would never leave you or forsake you. And then he's the one that's saying, okay, I know you're scared of this thing, but now jump. So yeah, these are the places we get into when we walk with him. I don't even want to lie to you. Like, I'm not gonna come on here, guys. One thing I'm never gonna do now is lie. I'm never gonna come on here and tell you guys a dream about what walking in Christ looks like. Like, I want you to have the full tea, so that should you make that decision to like actually be like serious about your own journey with him, I want you to know, like, have all the facts so that you are sure, because like, it's worth it. I swear, like, it's worth it, but it's not easy. It's not easy, but it's so beautiful. So anyway, I'm saying he's growing me in at the same time that he's using this to reach his children, and to reach the hearts of people. He's also working on me at the same time, like simultaneously, because now I'm back at a place where something that I thought I'd put to bed, and I no longer operate from a place where I feel like I need to prove anything to people. I no longer operate from a place where I feel like I need to do extra, like I need to sell people more than what I am. It's like now I'm just kind of like, this is who I am. If you like it, great. If you don't, that's cool too. But again, like, that has come with being in Christ. Like, that has come with finding peace in who I am, making peace with who I am, and understanding that my value and my worth, it doesn't come from anything that's on the outside, really. Like, it's been determined by God. So like, how people act or move around me has nothing to do with me. Like, that has got nothing to do with me. If it's a positive response, great. But if it's not, not my problem, sorry. But what I'm saying is, like, I understand now that it's not my responsibility to manage other people. Like, that's kind of the gist of what I'm talking about. I'm very, like, careful in how I move. I'm still very much, like, intentional in everything that I do. And also that is rooted in, like, living from a place of purpose. Like, I don't just go anywhere. I don't just do whatever. I don't just say whatever. I don't just, like, form connections and relationships with whoever. Like, I'm very intentional in all those things, but still have a freedom in how I do that, because I understand that, like, whatever happens then, like, that's not in my control. And so how I now interact with my environment is different, in that I understand that sometimes, like, now I understand that things are happening outside of me, right? Like, I don't internalize things. It's just like, hey man, like, life happens. Like, like, maybe they're having a bad day and that's why they're talking to you crazy. Like, maybe it's got nothing to do with you, So, like, I don't internalize anymore. And I think that's what happens when you have a performance complex, is that you internalize. And so, to protect yourself from internalizing negative experiences, you almost have to beat people to the punch by making sure that everything is perfect, everything is in line. Then they have nothing to criticize you about. Does that make sense? Like, I wanted to put myself in a position where nobody could criticize me about anything and feel like they can make me feel small about anything. So I was going to make sure that I had all my ducks in a row, But, like, it was bondage, really, because number one, I'm not perfect. I never will be, no matter how hard I try. And, like, sometimes, even when I have put in my best efforts, sometimes I'll fail. Sometimes it still won't, like, measure up. And so I had to understand that it doesn't, failing or putting in my best effort and then not reaping the results doesn't speak to my identity, my character, my worth. Sometimes, like, you just have egg on your face and you just have to move. It's part of life. Those are the things, like, I struggled with. Like, my thing was, no, no. Like, I'm not gonna even risk like any potential feelings of insecurity. I'm always gonna be confident. I'm always gonna be this. I'm gonna make sure I'm top tier so that I have nothing to feel bad about. And so the problem with that is, like, if you're that afraid of insecurity, you're probably already insecure. That's the thing. So I had to understand that you can't, like, you're not gonna prevent every catastrophe, number one. You're not gonna prevent every disaster by outsmarting the next person or outsmarting the system or just making sure you have prepared. There's no such thing. And that's why I always struggled with exams. Like, exams were always so hard for me because they were one of the things where there's really no way of predicting the outcome. Like, you can really study your hardest and give it your best and still fail, type of thing, you know, because of the questions that come out. Like, maybe you didn't study that part, or you know it but you don't know it well enough, or whatever. So I struggled with exams because of that element of having to trust that, like, my efforts won't necessarily always reflect the outcome. So yeah, man, like, God has set me free from all that stuff. And as much as I've been set free from it, now he still has me back in a place where he almost wants to test it. Because he's really put me to the test. Like, he's really just like, I've done all this healing in you. I've done all this work in you. I've spoken all these words over you. Now I want to see if you actually believe it. Like, do you believe me when I say that you are a royal priesthood, that you are a holy nation, that you are a prized possession? You know, regardless of how many likes, how many views, regardless of if anybody comes out and says, I needed this. Like, if there's a testimony that comes from this from somebody else that says, you know, I was going through the same thing. Of course, I'm trusting that these things will come. And that's the thing about walking in obedience to God, is that you are guaranteed to be blessed anyway because you are obedient. And of course, like, even that, like, it might not come in the ways that you expect, like, but God will bless you regardless. Like, God honors obedience, you know. So I know that regardless of how this plays out, like, I know that it's gonna work together for my good anyways. But it's hard, you know, having to be in a place where I'm just like, damn, like, all that old stuff is coming up. And I mean, I'm not like threatened by it because I know that I'm standing firm, you know, in who I am and the work that I've done. But the fact that it is being tested right now is interesting. It does feel uncomfortable, you know, because he really just is like, every day you're gonna have to come back to. There are so many different scriptures that are coming true in me doing this with you guys. Like, I don't even think you realize it. Like, he's also doing a thing where he's like, every day you're gonna have to trust me for fresh manna, as in, you don't know the direction of the channel. Like, you don't know where this is going. You don't know the full picture, the full vision of what you've just started. But you have to trust in me that I'm gonna give you the words that you should speak. You know, I have to trust him for fresh manna. Like, I can't just come on here and just start preaching to you guys like I know what I'm doing. Like, just because, you know, this is also like a part of what I do professionally doesn't mean that it's gonna be blessed just because I'm saying some things that I know out of a textbook. I can't just come on here and just speak from a place of like self-righteous knowledge where I'm just like, this is what I know to be true, so you should go do it too. Like, I can't move from a place of routine, you know, even though it's the thing he's using. I can only speak about the things he's actually telling me to speak about. Like, I could come on here and want to talk about something and he'll say, you know, that's not the day for that. That's not the content we're recording today. That's not what I want you to put out. You know, like, just because you know that and you have that like at your disposal doesn't mean that's what I want you to say. That's what I want you to talk about. And so that's what's so hard about being a mouthpiece for God, is that I actually have to wait for his instruction and his word to let me know, like, yeah, this is what I want you to talk about, you know. But it's so beautiful. Like, it's so cool getting to like see him lead me, like watch him like, you know, because I really have to like go back and be like, okay, so like, what are we doing today? And sometimes I don't even record. Like, some days I don't record because there's nothing. Like, not even if I pull up my Bible and start reading some scripture thinking like something, nothing. Like, some days he's just like, nah, like, just relax, edit the content you already have. Like, other days he's just like, edit what you have, you know. So yeah, man, it's funny because I knew that he would be using me, you know, in doing this, but I didn't think that he'd be working in me too. So yeah, like, I was speaking about, you know, performance complexes, and like, I want to encourage somebody that either can relate to that or just any type of stuff you have that you need to unpack that comes from a relationship that you had with a loved one, in this case like a guardian, that you're not alone. We're all doing the work. We're gonna talk a lot about this stuff, but I want us to always approach it in the healthiest way possible, because I know that in my healing journey, like, it was very messy. It is messy, and I didn't, in some of the things I've already worked through, I didn't always approach them or work through them in the most healthiest ways. Like I said, like, I went through periods where I wanted people to blame, where I blamed myself, and I just felt like there's so much stuff I don't even want to unpack anymore. Like, I don't even want to unpack. Like, let me just be broken. I'll just limp my whole life and trust that it'll get me through and get me by, and that it would be enough. And so, yeah, I don't want you guys to be in those places. I want you to be set up in your healing in such a way that although you feel broken in some areas, you're still empowered. You still know that, like, no one is at fault. You know, you need to forgive others, but you also need to forgive yourself, and that, everybody really probably tried their best, because that is, sometimes it's hard to even, like, acknowledge that. It's hard to accept it, because sometimes people really treated us horribly. But it's true, that sometimes people treated you that the way that they did out of their own brokenness, and that because that's all they knew. Maybe that's how they were treated, so that they thought that that's what you do. So there's a lot of, like, compassion that goes into unpacking. And so I don't want us to be people who heal, but just to come out, like, bitter and resentful on the other side, and able to point out, like, oh, that's toxic in others, like pointing out the log in your brother's eye. I want us to heal from a place where you are able to recognize that there's a log in their eye, but that there's also, a log in your own, and that's how we got here, is that everybody needs to heal, and have compassion for them too. And I think sometimes, like, the reason why it's so hard to heal, like, through the anger, is that it's so much easier to just believe that people were doing you dirty on purpose, or that they're bad people, they're not good people, you know because when you are in your own pain, it's hard to see their humanity. It's hard to have compassion for them. You are working on having compassion for yourself to an extent where you almost have no compassion available for others. But I really want to encourage us to keep space for the people that hurt us, especially in this case, like, where we're talking about, I'm not gonna say that this applies across the board to, like, friendships and relationships, because some people, like, they hated you for real, like, they really were out to get you, like, dead ass. But, like, when it comes to parent-child dynamics, a lot of the time, like, 9 out of 10 times, the parents actually meant no harm. And that was true in my case as well. Like, just because you didn't have a completely perfect childhood, and you have some stuff that came out of it, doesn't mean that you weren't loved, that you weren't cared for, that you weren't supported, that they didn't devote their lives to making sure that you were the person that you are today, whatever that looks like. And so I want us to do something that I feel like took me a long time to recognize I needed to do, which is have compassion, for those people. You are completely entitled to your feelings. You are completely validated in your hurt. But your validation can also, like, two things can be true at once. You can be validated in your feelings, and also, hold compassion and space for the humanity of others. Because just as you are imperfect, just as you are a mess, they are probably struggling with the same things. Like, I think when I was younger, I saw grown-ups as these people that should know everything, that have everything figured out. But then, as I'm becoming an adult myself, like, I'm realizing adults actually are also just, like, trying to figure it out as they go along. Like, they don't have it all figured out. They don't have all the answers. And just because an adult has had a child doesn't mean that is any less true. And now they know more. They just have a child, and now they have to raise that child too to be an adult one day. Like, it's a lot. It's a lot of pressure and responsibility, you know. So I guess, like, the gist of, like, me even, like, bringing this up is that I don't want our healing to be the thing that also causes hurt to others. Like, yes, let's heal, but let's do it in the most, like, responsible way possible. Your healing shouldn't be something that ends up, like, putting you in a position where you feel like you can, talk about the brokenness of others, and shove it in their faces, where you feel like you can be the mirror to them that shows them just how ugly and horrible they are or have been, even if it's just to you, you know. Yeah, like, let's heal in a way that won't have any casualties, because that can happen. Like, healing should be a beautiful thing. It should be a thing that it empowers you, but it actually can cause a lot of damage to the people around you if you are healing in all sorts of directions, and like I said, like, everything that I say, it will never not be anything that I've experienced and been through. And I know that sometimes in you getting your healing, others can get hurt, whether it's by, like, the things you're saying, in terms of how much they've hurt you now because you have language for the pain they caused, or it's because of this newfound awareness that you have about your own stuff. And so now you want to tell them about their stuff, but they're not even in a place where they're ready to deal with their stuff. You can't force people into starting healing journeys that they haven't initiated themselves. Just because you feel like you're healing and you're ready doesn't mean that you should want to project that onto others, because ultimately, again, like, that comes from a self-righteous place of feeling like you are the one that knows the answers, you have the answers, and so now you want to push that onto them, and it's so unfair. Some people will never even do the work, and those are the things we must come to terms with. Like, those are the things we have to accept as well, like, is relinquishing control, because you don't have it anyway. You try, but you don't have it, so yeah, like, don't allow your healing to be the thing that causes even more breakdown in relationships. I know sometimes, you will heal in a direction that will actually cause you to drift away from people, and like, your boundaries will be set up in such a way that you actually have to have limited contact with certain individuals, and that's completely fine. But that's different from walking around feeling like now you're better than the people that hurt you because they're still stuck in that version of themselves. If you just have to be grateful, if anything, that you were able to come to the light and heal in the first place, because they're still living in those places. So yeah, guys, let's have the conversations that we need to have, but we need to have them with their safety. Don't force people into conversations they're not ready or willing to have. There are conversations you will never be able to have, even with some people, because they just wouldn't understand, or they would gaslight you. Like, there were times where I hurt myself by forcefully trying to, like, have people see my perspective, like, by force. And so that leaves you feeling gaslit and invalidated. But you walked into that, like, you kind of set yourself up for it, but then you'll just walk away saying, like, they gaslit you, they invalidated you. But really, what you should have done was vet whether they were in a position to receive you in a way that won't leave you feeling invalidated and gaslit, And so we don't want our healing to create cycles of pain, whether it's for ourselves or for others, And you don't need to wait for people to even acknowledge or validate you before you can start to heal. Like, sometimes all it takes is just you knowing your truth and acknowledging the things that happened to you, or the things that you went through. Even if nobody else will say, yeah, that happened. Even if people say that never happened, you need to always be willing to stand firm in your truth. Like, your truth needs to be, like, that solid, and not solid in the sense that, like, again, now you walk around, calling things out in others, because you would have become so solid in your self-awareness and your revelations that you can't even see others anymore. Like, all you see is you. Everywhere you go, you're accidentally projecting without even knowing it. Because you've healed so much, now all you do is see the brokenness in others. and there's nothing godly about that either. There's nothing healthy about that, you know, because again, like, it takes away the ability to have compassion for people, because they are not where you are. Like, it's so unfair, you know. So yeah, like, let's approach this with the utmost grace. There really is a place where we can heal with grace, and um heal in a way where we're also not so sold out and so, like, committed to our narrative or our truth that we're not open to accepting the truth and narrative of others, even if that truth is just that, yeah, well, I know I hurt you, but I tried. you know Two things can be true at once. That's another thing, like, I had to come to terms with eventually was, yes, you can be hurt, and they could have also never meant to hurt you. So there is a lot of turmoil and a lot of residue that gets left over that you have to work on to repair the relationship if you didn't heal in a way that was graceful. And so that's why I'm saying the more gracefully we heal, the better off we'll be, because then the less repair we'll have to do on those relationships, the ones we at least want to keep, that is. I'm not speaking to the ones where you have to distance yourself from the person. I'm talking about the one where this is like a parent. For the relationships that you still have to keep, we have the responsibility, we owe it to ourselves and to them to make sure that there's as minimum repair as possible needed when you get on the other side, you know. And a lot of the times, like, a relationship will be strained because you're healing, but also will repair because you're healing. Like, if something changes in an environment, right, everything else around it gets affected, and they have no choice but to change. Like, let's say you're someone that struggles with yelling, right? Like, you yell when you're upset. If you stop yelling, and say maybe like you had this pattern where you start yelling and then they start yelling, now you're all yelling. If you stop yelling, chances are, like, they might still yell for some time, but chances are eventually they might, like, start to feel like they're crazy for the fact that they continue to yell and you're not yelling anymore, because now you're calm, they're yelling, and it just oaks. It's like, why are we yelling? And they might start to, like, adjust their voice, like their tone, over time, because they realize, like, okay, maybe this isn't healthy. So, like, your healing, even though it might not happen immediately, your healing will actually prompt and trigger healing, or rather change in others, like the change that you are actually looking for. So yeah, like, but don't forcefully, like, take it. Don't think that you can forcefully ask for other people's healings or compliance with your own. I think that's the crux of what I'm trying to get to, is like, don't try to force feed healing into people, and don't expect them to start adjusting because you're healing. I think you need to allow that to naturally happen on its own. There should be a place where, yes, you can have uncomfortable conversations, and definitely, if the opportunity is there, to let people know how they hurt you, but not from a place where you're expecting something from them. So learning how to develop even boundaries over time as you heal, you will see that you will have to taper and adjust your boundaries according to the dynamic that you have in that relationship. You can't just go, like, you can't have an extreme approach where you're just like, well, if you don't stop yelling at me, I'm just like, I'm not going to speak to you at all. Like, I'm not coming to your house, I'm not going to visit you. It might just have to start by, okay, I don't like yelling. This person yells. I know that about them, right? I know that they're not going to change yet, but I'm changing, and the yelling makes me uncomfortable. So if I saw them 4 weeks, maybe in a row at a time before, maybe now I'll just see them twice. I won't see them for 4 weeks. I'll see them 2 weeks, and I'll space them out. Like, I'll see them once every 2 weeks as opposed to every week. You start to form boundaries around the things that you can, I don't want to say control, the things that you can manage. You have to manage the factors around you without trying to manage the person themselves. So you can limit the amount of exposure that you have to put up with that triggering behavior, without completely eliminating that relationship, without completely throwing the baby out with the bathwater. because some people will do that. Like, they'll cut off their whole family without even having tried, like, to see if there's a way that they can interact with this person, even though they won't change, in a way that, still keeps them safe in their boundaries, but where they still are able to have relationship, because at the end of the day, we are called to community. Like, we can't live outside of people. We can't live without people, you know. And you're gonna run into issues with everybody. Like, that would be delusional to think you're gonna find your tribe, and then you and your tribe are gonna think the same, and so no one will ever get offended or hurt, and no one's boundaries will be crossed. You just live happily ever after. Therefore, you're gonna go around cutting off everyone else. It's different with relationships that are actually up to you, like your friendships. Like, those are the people you get to choose, and romantic partners. There, your standards can be different. Like, you can just be like, you know what, like, I'm not even dealing with this. But when it comes to family in particular, I think that there is a way that we can heal and change without wanting to be prodigal sons and daughters, guys. It's just, no, we can't be that generation of runaways. Like, you need family. I'm sorry. Like, I know some people don't want to hear that. Like, but we. So yeah, guys. Like, I said a lot in this video. Like, I went in a whole bunch of different directions I didn't plan on going in, and ironically, I didn't even plan this video. I didn't know what I was gonna speak about. I was blank. I started off once to talk about one thing, and it just wasn't coming together. Like, it was just like giving. God is just like, nah, nope. And I just found myself here, but I do think, like, we got some good stuff here. Like, this is going to be really helpful to a lot of you, and it's been helpful to me too. I think I needed to hear myself say some of those things out loud. Sometimes you heal into certain revelations and you don't even know that you have them. Like, you've started using the revelation in the relationship, but you don't have language for the revelation itself. And so I think that's what this did for me. Like, now I'm just like, damn, like, even I've come a long way. Like, I didn't know I've completely changed my outlook and perspective in how I related to my own healing, and the relationships around me, especially as it relates to family. And now I'm like, I feel like there are some conversations I might need to have, actually, you know. Yeah, like, we need to take accountability, guys. Like, if there are people that you've hurt while you were healing and hurting, because healing will come with hurting, like, in realizing just how broken you may be in some areas, that will come with a lot of grief, because you will realize how many parts of yourself have been functioning at like 10%. You weren't at your optimum because you were operating from injury. Like, imagine a soccer player playing with a limp. In realizing that you've been limping in a lot of areas of your life, that comes with a lot of grief. And the fact that you have to shed those old parts of yourself will come with grief as well. Like, in changing and letting go some things that you consider to be part of who you were, part of your personality, part of your character. Like, that's really hard, because now you don't even know who this other person is on the other side of that. And the fact that in changing, that might mean like your relationship dynamics will change around you, like your friendships or whatever. Like, that will change them, because now you're not the same person anymore. So you don't even know who's going to be with you on the other side. Like, healing is scary. It really is scary. Like, if we're being 100% real, because you don't know where it's going to take you and who it's going to take you to and from. So yeah, man, I think that's all I've got for today, guys. I'm really glad that we get to do this together, though. For real. Like, I didn't know how much I needed this. Like, for real. Like, this is therapeutic for me too. And yeah, like, I'm also just so grateful that God actually came through. Like, I legit didn't know what I was going to talk about today, and he came through with a fresh manner, and so yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Stay warm, stay safe, and yeah, walk in your purpose. Even if you don't know what that is yet, start declaring it over yourself, like, that you are a person that walks in purpose. You are a person that has purpose. What would be the point of healing if it's not to fulfill purpose? So I love you, and I'll see you in the next one. If you're listening to this means you made it until the end. Congratulations, you're a commenter. I like it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Also, share with your friends. I'll see you in the next one.